The city was waking slowly, like an old man stretching after a long, restless night. The morning air smelled of wet earth. It had rained just before dawn, and the narrow streets of Manila shimmered in puddles of gold as sunlight broke through heavy clouds. A boy, barefoot and slight, moved through the market square carrying a plastic bucket and an old battered microphone. His clothes hung loose on his frame. The collar of his shirt was torn and his jeans were faded beyond repair. But his eyes, deep, soulful, and alive, had a light that no amount of hardship could dim. His name was Eli Santos. 14 years old, every morning, he came to the same corner beside a cracked stone fountain, where pigeons fluttered and vendors shouted over one another. The people knew him, the singing boy with the broken speaker. Sometimes children would pause to listen. Sometimes adults would toss a few coins into his bucket. Most days they just hurried past, lost in their own battles. But Eli didn't mind. Because when he sang, he wasn't in the market anymore. He was somewhere else, a world where pain didn't exist, where his little sister Maya could laugh freely without coughing or clutching her chest. Maya was 7. She had a heart condition that the doctors said was serious, a word Eli had come to hate. He didn't understand medical terms, but he understood hunger, cold, and the trembling in her small hands when her medicine ran out. He worked to keep her alive, one song, one coin at a time. That morning, as the sun rose, Maya sat nearby on a low crate, wrapped in a worn blanket. Her dark hair glowed in the light, and though her face was pale, her smile was bright. She watched her brother set up the old speaker, her eyes full of quiet pride. "Ready?" Eli asked, testing the mic. "Always," she whispered, giggling. He smiled and began to sing. His voice rose, soft at first, a delicate sound that danced above the noise of the market. The melody was simple, an old lullaby his mother used to hum before she passed away. But as Eli sang, something magical happened. People slowed down. A woman selling bread turned to look. A bus driver, waiting for passengers, lowered his radio. Even the pigeons seemed to settle quietly. Eli's voice had that kind of power, not loud or trained, but pure. It came from somewhere deep, where love and pain were mixed together. When he finished, a few people clapped. A man dropped some coins into the bucket. Maya beamed, her small hands clapping with all the strength she had. "That was beautiful," she said. "For you," he replied softly. That night, they shared a small bowl of rice and soup in their tiny one-room shelter behind an old warehouse. Rain pattered on the roof, and the dim light of a single bulb flickered. Maya leaned against Eli's shoulder as he counted the coins. "Enough for your medicine," he said, smiling. She sighed with relief. "Someday you'll be rich and famous, Eli. You'll sing on a big stage with lights and cameras and everything." He laughed, shaking his head. "I don't want to be famous. I just want you to get better." "But you will be," she insisted, her voice soft and sure. "People will hear you. They have to." Her words lingered in his mind long after she fell asleep. That night, Eli looked up through a hole in the roof where the stars peeked through. He whispered, "If you're listening, God, I don't want money. I just want a chance, one chance to change her life." The next day, as he sang outside the bakery, the crowd was thinner than usual. Most people hurried past, umbrellas up, heads down. His speaker crackled and hissed. Still, Eli sang. He didn't notice the man standing near the edge of the crowd, a tall man in a gray suit holding a briefcase. The man listened, unmoving, until the song ended. Then he approached. "Where did you learn to sing like that?" he asked. Eli looked up, startled. "Nowhere, sir. I just sing what I feel," the man smiled. "You have a gift. I'm one of the producers for The Voice of Tomorrow. Have you heard of it?" Eli's eyes widened. He'd seen the show once through a shop window. Bright lights, huge crowds, judges, confetti. It was another universe compared to his little corner. The man handed him a business card. "Auditions are next week. You should come." "That voice deserves to be heard." Eli blinked, speechless. I don't have money for the bus. Or proper clothes?" The man hesitated, then took out his wallet and pressed a few bills into the boy's hand. Don't waste this chance, son. The world needs voices like yours. And just like that, he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. That evening, Eli ran home, his heart racing. Maya was sitting by the door, waiting for him. "What happened? Why are you smiling like that?" she asked, giggling. He showed her the card, his voice trembling with excitement. "Maya, they want me to audition." "For the TV show!" Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You mean you're going to sing on television?" Eli nodded. "If I win, I'll buy you the best doctor in the country." She covered her mouth, tears glistening. "You'll win, Eli. I know you will." That night she couldn't sleep. She stayed awake, imagining the bright lights, the audience clapping, her brother standing on stage like a star. For the first time in a long time, hope filled that little room. The days leading up to the audition were the longest of Eli's life. He practiced in the alleyways, under bridges, anywhere he could find echo. He fixed his old speaker with tape. He washed his only shirt, mending the torn collar with a safety pin. Maya watched him from the corner, her hands folded. "You sound like an angel," she said once, her voice trembling. He smiled. "Then you're my wings." Finally, the day arrived. The city buzzed with energy. Contestants crowded outside the auditorium, girls with perfect hair, boys with guitars, groups in matching outfits. Eli stood among them, nervous but determined. He carried no instrument, no fancy clothes, just his heart. Inside, the stage lights were blinding. The judges sat in a row, sipping coffee, flipping through papers. The audience whispered and cheered as one contestant after another performed. Backstage, Eli clutched the microphone he'd brought from home, scratched and taped. He whispered, "Please, just let them hear me. That's all I want." When his name was called, he stepped out onto the stage. The lights hit his face, and for a moment, he froze. The hall was enormous, the crowd endless. One of the judges smiled kindly. "What's your name, young man?" "Eli Santos," he said softly. "And what will you sing for us?" He took a deep breath. "A song I wrote for my sister," the audience murmured. The judges nodded. Then Eli closed his eyes and sang. At first, it was quiet, almost too soft to hear. But then his voice grew, smooth and trembling, carrying something raw and real. Each note seemed to hold a story of hunger, love, and faith that refused to die. People stopped shifting in their seats. The crowd leaned forward. His voice filled the hall, echoing through the rafters, wrapping around every soul in the room. It was as if time paused, as if heaven itself had leaned closer to listen. One judge covered her mouth, her eyes glistening. Another whispered, "He's singing from his soul." When the final note faded, silence fell, deep and holy. Then suddenly the audience erupted into applause. The judges stood. Tears streamed down the woman's face. Eli stood there, stunned, clutching his microphone. He had never heard applause before, so not like this. The host walked up, smiling. "Ladies and gentlemen, remember this name, Eli Santos." Eli smiled shyly. Somewhere inside, he could feel Maya smiling, too. That night, after the show, Eli ran home as fast as his feet could carry him. He burst through the door laughing, breathless. "Maya! I did it! They loved it!" She looked up weakly from her bed, smiling. "I knew they would." He knelt beside her, holding her tiny hand. "We're going to make it, Maya. Everything's going to change." And for a moment, just one precious moment, the world outside their small room didn't matter. Because in that room, a dream had come alive. The night after Eli's breathtaking performance, the city didn't sleep. Clips of his angelic voice flooded social media, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. People around the world replayed his trembling hands and teary smile. Comments poured in. "This boy's voice healed my heart." I cried watching him. "He's proof that angels walk among us." The world had found its new star. But in a dim hospital room miles away, one little girl already knew that. Maya lay on her narrow bed, the soft hum of medical machines filling the air. Her small hands clutched the blanket tightly. The nurse entered and said gently, "Your brother did it, sweetheart. You should have seen the judges cry." Maya's eyes glimmered weakly. "I knew he would make them cry," she whispered with a faint smile. "Because his songs come from love." Eli reached the hospital just before sunrise. His clothes were still damp from the rain outside, and his hair clung to his forehead. He ran down the hallway past nurses and doctors until he saw her, his little sister, pale but smiling faintly. He knelt beside her bed, taking her hand in his. "I sang for you, Maya. Everyone loved it. The judges said I had the voice of an angel." Her lips curved into a weak smile. "You are an angel, Eli. My angel." He laughed softly, though his eyes glistened. "Don't say that. I'm just your brother." "No," she whispered, closing her eyes. "You're my light." Her voice trailed into a whisper, and Eli's chest tightened with fear. He wanted to say more, to promise her everything. But words seemed too small for what he felt. That night, he sat beside her bed, humming the lullaby their mother used to sing. His voice was soft, trembling. Every note seemed to float up into the ceiling like a prayer. And though she was asleep, a small smile lingered on her face, the kind of smile that said she could still hear him. Days passed. Eli's video crossed 20 million views. Reporters wanted interviews. TV channels wanted him on their shows. People offered money, sponsors, fame, but Eli said only one thing: "Please let me stay with my sister. She needs me." The world saw him as a rising star, but to him, fame meant nothing if Maya wasn't there to see it. Then came the call from the show's producer. "Eli, you're in the finals. You have one more performance." Eli hesitated. "Sir, my sister's sick. I don't know if I can—" The man interrupted gently. "Bring her with you. We'll make it happen. The audience loves your story. Let's give her something to smile about." For the first time in weeks, Eli smiled. "Thank you, sir. She'll be so happy." The night before the finals, he sat by Maya's side again. She looked fragile, her breaths shallow, but her spirit glowed as bright as ever. "Tomorrow's the big day," she whispered. "You're going to win." He smiled, brushing her hair gently. "Winning doesn't matter. Singing for you does." She looked at him, her eyes glassy but full of love. "Promise me something, Eli." "Anything. Promise you'll keep singing." "Even if I'm not there to hear it." He froze, his heart aching. "Don't say that." "You will be there." She smiled faintly. "Just promise." He nodded, tears filling his eyes. "I promise." Morning came heavy with rain. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beeping of the machines. Maya's small hand rested in his, cold but peaceful. "Ready to go?" he whispered. She nodded weakly. "Sing for the world." "And for me." He squeezed her hand. "Always." The doctors agreed to let her watch the show from a private room through live broadcast. As Eli left, he looked back once more. She waved, her little hand trembling, but her smile was full of courage. The finals night was magical. Thousands filled the hall, their faces glowing in anticipation. The judges sat waiting, their eyes warm with recognition. Everyone knew this performance would be special. Backstage, Eli stood in silence, clutching the locket around his neck. Inside was Maya's picture, her smile, her eyes, the reason he sang at all. A stagehand called, "Eli Santos, you're up next." He whispered to himself, "For her, for my little star." The lights dimmed. A single spotlight fell on him as he walked barefoot onto the grand stage. The audience erupted in cheers. Cameras flashed. But Eli saw none of it. He was somewhere else, in his heart, standing beside Maya by the old fountain where it all began. One of the judges leaned forward. "Eli, what will you sing tonight?" He looked up, voice trembling. "A song I wrote for my sister Maya." The hall went quiet. The music began, a single piano note, slow and haunting. And then Eli sang. His voice rose like a whisper from heaven, soft, pure, and full of aching love. Every lyric carried pieces of his story. The nights they went hungry, the laughter under the broken roof, the prayers whispered through tears. If I could trade my breath for yours, I'd do it without fear, for love is more than living. It's the reason we are here. The words filled the hall, echoing off the walls. People in the audience began to cry. The camera zoomed in on the judges, tears streaming down their faces. Even backstage, technicians stopped working just to listen, and miles away, in that quiet hospital room, Maya watched from her bed, her weak fingers tracing the image of her brother on the TV screen. Her eyes glistened as she whispered, "That's my brother." For a brief moment, the nurse beside her swore she saw her smile, peaceful, glowing, angelic. Back on stage, Eli sang the final verse, his voice trembling but strong. "And when the stars forget to shine, I'll sing your name instead. For love will never end, my dear, not even when we're dead." When the last note faded, silence filled the room, not the silence of boredom, but the silence of awe. Then, as if on cue, the entire audience stood. The applause was thunderous, unstoppable. Some cried openly. Others simply bowed their heads, overcome by emotion. The woman judge covered her face, sobbing. The host's voice cracked as he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Eli Santos, the voice that touched heaven." Eli's eyes welled with tears. He looked up at the lights above, whispering softly, "Did you hear that, little star?" The next morning, the headlines screamed, "Poor boy's angelic singing brings judges to tears. A miracle on stage." Eli had won. But when he rushed to the hospital with the trophy in his hands, the world stopped once more. Maya was gone. She had slipped away peacefully during the broadcast, her hand resting over the small TV screen, frozen on the image of Eli singing under the spotlight. Eli fell to his knees beside her bed, clutching her hand, tears streaming endlessly. "I won. Maya," he whispered brokenly. "We did it. We finally did it." But there was no answer. Only the quiet hum of the machines that had fallen silent. The funeral was small but beautiful. Hundreds of people showed up, strangers who had seen his performance, touched by his love for his sister. Flowers covered her small coffin, and someone played his song softly in the background. Eli stood silently, holding the locket she once wore. The woman judge from the show attended, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "You gave her eternity, Eli," she said softly. "Your love turned pain into music, and that music became her wings." Eli didn't speak. He simply nodded, his eyes red but peaceful. Weeks turned into months. Eli's fame grew, but his humility stayed. He started a foundation named Maya's Light, helping sick children who couldn't afford treatment. He said, "My sister couldn't be saved, but maybe her light can save others." Every concert he performed began the same way, with a single light shining on an empty chair beside him. He would whisper, "This one's for you, Maya," and then begin to sing. His voice carried through arenas, through screens, through hearts. People said they could feel something divine in his performances, as if an unseen harmony joined him, note by note. And sometimes, when the lights dimmed just right, a faint shimmer would appear beside him, as if a small star hovered there, glowing softly. Years later, in an interview, a reporter asked, "Eli, do you still think about her when you sing?" He smiled gently. "Every time." You see, people think music comes from the lungs, but real music, the kind that heals, comes from love. And love never dies. He looked up, eyes distant but peaceful. "She's still here. Every time I sing, she listens." That night after the interview, Eli stood alone on the same stage where his story began. The arena was empty, the seats dark. He closed his eyes and sang softly. No cameras, no crowd, just him and the echo of a memory. "You're the light behind my song, the breath within my name, and even though you're gone from sight, my heart still burns the same." A gentle breeze passed through the hall, brushing against his face. And for a moment, just a moment, he felt a warmth beside him, as if someone small and familiar was smiling. He looked up, whispering, "Good night, my little star." Far above, one star twinkled brighter than all the rest. Sometimes, The purest love isn't about holding on, it's about letting go with grace. Eli's voice didn't just win a show, it healed millions, because true music is made of love. Years passed, but the sound of Eli's voice never faded. Every city he visited, every crowd that cheered carried whispers of one girl's smile, Maya. The world saw him as a star, but Eli never forgot that the real light was never his. It was hers. It was the anniversary of Maya's passing. Eli returned to their hometown, a small, quiet place that still smelled of rain and wood smoke. He walked through the same narrow streets they once ran through barefoot. Every corner held a memory. The broken lamppost they used to count stars. Under the bench where Maya made up silly songs about clouds. And the fountain, the one they sang beside when life was still simple. He sat there quietly, holding her old locket in his hand. The metal had faded, but her picture inside was still bright, smiling, as if she was telling him to keep going. For the first time in a long time, Eli spoke aloud. "I did everything you told me to, Maya. I kept singing. I kept loving. But it still hurts." The wind stirred softly, carrying the faint sound of a child's laughter. He looked up, but no one was there, just sunlight reflecting off the water. Still, somehow he smiled. That evening, Eli performed at a charity concert in his hometown. The light lives on. The stadium was full, but the air felt intimate, as if everyone there had come to feel, not just to listen. Before stepping on stage, he stood in front of a mirror backstage. For a moment, he didn't see the famous singer everyone adored. He saw a poor boy again, nervous, barefoot, clutching a dream. He took a deep breath and whispered, "This one's for you." The curtain lifted. A single white light illuminated the stage. And in the middle stood that same old wooden chair, empty but glowing softly. The audience fell silent as Eli took the microphone. He looked at the crowd and said, "There was a time when I thought music was just sound, but then I lost the person I loved the most. And I learned something. Real music isn't heard by ears, it's felt by the heart. And tonight I want to sing something not for fame, not for applause, but for love that never dies." The hall went still. Then, the piano began. His new song started slow, a melody that seemed to rise straight from the earth and reach for heaven. "You taught me light. When I only knew the dark, you gave me wings. When I couldn't find my spark. And now I sing, not just for me, but for the love that set me free." As he sang, the giant LED screen behind him began to show old clips. Grainy photos of him and Maya laughing in the rain, sharing bread, holding hands. The audience began to cry quietly. In the front row, a little girl, bald from chemotherapy, clutched her mother's hand and whispered, "Mama, that's how my brother used to sing for me." Her mother hugged her tightly. Around them, people reached for tissues, eyes glistening. Midway through the song, something extraordinary happened. A sudden soft light, golden, ethereal, shone down on the empty chair beside him. The crowd gasped. Eli stopped singing for a second, looking toward the chair. His lips trembled, his eyes filled with tears, because in that light, he felt her laughter, her warmth, her love. And with a shaky breath, he smiled and said softly into the mic, "You're still here, aren't you?" He wiped his tears, stepped closer to the light, and finished the song, not to the crowd, but to her. "You are the song inside my soul, the hand that makes me whole. And though the world may fade away, our love will always stay." The final note lingered in the air, pure, haunting, eternal. The lights dimmed. The audience rose in complete silence, then erupted into applause so thunderous it shook the room. But Eli didn't bow. He just looked up, at that one light still glowing on the chair, and whispered, "Thank you for staying, my little star." After the show, he stepped outside alone. The city skyline glowed, Stars twinkling faintly above, a small voice echoed in his mind, Maya's voice. Told you, Eli. Love never ends. He smiled through tears. You were right. You always were? That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He opened his notebook, the one he used to write songs in as a kid, and began writing something new. Not a song this time. A letter. Dear Maya, I used to think music was what made people love me. But I was wrong. It was you. You taught me that kindness can echo louder than any song. Every note I sing is your heartbeat. Every tear I shed becomes a verse. You didn't just give me music. You gave me purpose. I'll keep singing, not to be remembered, but to remind people that love is still real. And when my voice finally fades, I hope it finds you. Wherever angels live, your brother, always, Eli. He folded the letter and placed it inside her old locket. Then he hung it around his neck again. The next morning, news channels and social media exploded. Clips from the concert went viral, especially the moment when the mysterious light appeared beside Eli. People around the world called it the angel's glow. Some said it was stage lighting. Others said it was a reflection, but those who truly believed, they knew what it really was. The comment sections flooded with stories of people reconnecting with lost loved ones, forgiving family members, helping strangers. Eli's performance had done something more powerful than winning awards. It had healed hearts. Months later, he launched a program under the Maya's Light Foundation, free music therapy for children fighting illness. Hospitals all over the country invited him to sing, and in every room he would kneel by the bed, hold the child's hand, and whisper, "You are loved. You are light. You are not alone." Children smiled. Parents wept. Doctors said his presence brought peace even to those in pain. He wasn't just a singer anymore. He was hope, living, breathing hope. One evening, during a performance at a children's hospital, a little girl asked him shyly, "Mr. Eli, how do you sing so beautifully without crying?" He smiled warmly, kneeling to her level. "Oh, I do cry," he said softly. "But I turn my tears into songs. That's how my sister taught me." The little girl tilted her head. "Is she here now?" He looked up at the ceiling, smiling faintly. "Always. Years passed." Eli grew older, but his eyes never lost that gentle shine. Every time he sang, people swore the air around him shimmered faintly, as if someone invisible was standing beside him. On his final concert, decades later, he stood on stage one last time. The stadium was filled with candles, their soft light dancing like stars. He held the mic, his voice calm, wise, full of peace. "When I was young, I sang because I wanted to be heard, but now I sing because I want people to feel loved. If tonight is my last song, I want it to be a message, that even the smallest voice can change the world." The crowd went silent. He sang one last song, a gentle lullaby. And as his voice faded, the lights above the stage slowly dimmed, except for one, a single golden spotlight shining right beside him. He smiled at it, whispered, "Let's go home," and closed his eyes. When the concert ended, the world mourned, but not in sadness, because everyone who had ever heard Eli sing carried a part of him inside them. A reminder that love transcends life, loss, and time. Years later, a small boy stood by the same old fountain in Eli's hometown, humming the same tune Eli once sang. Beside him, his mother smiled. "That's beautiful. Where did you learn that?" The boy looked up and said softly, "I don't know. It just came to me, like someone was singing with me." She smiled and kissed his forehead, and as they walked away, a faint golden shimmer reflected off the water, gentle, glowing, eternal. Love doesn't end when someone leaves. It continues in every act of kindness, every song, every heartbeat. Eli's story reminds us that the most beautiful music in the world is made not from fame, but from love. Because when you sing from your soul, even heaven listens.